Welcome to the Passive Path. Today we're talking about a sensitive topic with a practical goal: how people sequence borrowing, earning, spending, and saving, and why that sequence tends to separate staying safe from building freedom. I'm joined by a fictional guest, an idea character who represents a set of arguments I've been seeing a lot, that the rich aren't richer because they're more disciplined, but because they use money differently. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Yes, most people treat don't borrow like a moral rule. But what if the order you use money, not the amount, quietly decides your ceiling? If saving comes first, why do so many disciplined savers still feel trapped? And if borrowing is always bad, why do the biggest balance sheets in the world run on it?
Before we start, set expectations. What are you not saying today?
I'm not saying borrow money and you'll get rich. I'm not saying saving is useless or that jobs are worthless. And I'm definitely not saying people should gamble with debt. What I am saying is money has a workflow, and most people only learn one workflow. The one that minimizes embarrassment, not the one that maximizes options.
Okay, let's name the workflow.
Most of us touch money through 4 actions. We borrow, we earn, we spend, and we save. Almost everyone does all 4 across a lifetime. The difference is the order and the purpose. A common safe order looks like this: avoid borrowing, work hard to earn, then save what's left, and only then spend on wants. It feels responsible. It's also the default plan you design if your biggest fear is running out. Another order shows up in business and investing. Borrow or raise capital for a reason. Spend it to create an asset or capability. Earn through that asset, and only then decide how much to keep liquid versus reinvest. From the outside, it can look reckless, but in the best cases, it's not reckless. It's structured.
So your claim is, one order is poor thinking, the other is rich thinking.
I'd phrase it more gently. One order is a scarcity strategy, and the other is a leverage strategy. Scarcity strategy isn't stupid. It's often rational when you have low income, unstable income, no safety net, or high responsibilities. But it has a ceiling. Leverage strategy can break ceilings if you manage risk like an adult.
Let's make this concrete. When you say scarcity strategy, what does it sound like in someone's head?
It sounds like, if I borrow, I'm failing. Or if I take a risk, I might ruin my family. Or I need to be ready for anything, so I can't commit. The emotional tone is money is rare, money is fragile, and my job is to protect it. That inner tone shapes behavior. You avoid debt, you avoid big bets, you avoid visibility, you avoid starting things until you feel ready. And because you avoid those things, you also avoid the paths where income can scale. Then you interpret the result as that's just reality.
You're describing a mindset loop.
Exactly. Beliefs shape actions. Actions shape outcomes. Outcomes confirm beliefs. It's not destiny. It's repetition.
In the transcript you're inspired by, without quoting it, there's a story about an older relative discouraging entrepreneurship. That's common.
It's extremely common. And it's important because it shows how environment becomes truth. Imagine someone who worked 30 years, got promoted, bought a home, maybe 2, bought a car and created stability. That's real achievement. But their mental model is, I succeeded by staying inside the rules. So when a young person talks about starting a business, they run the simulation in their head using their own rules. The simulation says, no money means no business. Business means risk. Risk means disaster. Therefore, don't. And if you live around people who share that simulation, it starts to feel like a law of physics.
But it's not physics. It's a neighborhood.
Exactly. There are neighborhoods, literal or social, where entrepreneurship is normal, where borrowing for a productive asset is normal, where asking for capital is normal, where failing at a project doesn't make you a failed person. It makes you someone who learned fast. If you grow up there, you don't become a genius. You just inherit a different default.
So what's the move if someone doesn't have that environment?
You build a portable environment. 3 parts. 1. Information diet. If your inputs are only fear-based stories, business is risky, investing is gambling, banks are evil, your outputs will be cautious. Choose inputs that show process, not just outcomes. You want stories that explain how people structure risk. 2. Relationship scaffolding. You don't need a billionaire friend. You need peers who are building things, learning skills, selling, shipping, improving. Communities like that exist online, locally, in professional groups. You're trying to normalize action. 3. Small proof. Scarcity thinking usually collapses when you get repeated evidence that you can create value. Not viral fame, not massive profit, just proof that your actions can produce income without permission.
Yeah, I like that. Portable environment. Now let's go to the controversial part, borrowing. People hear borrow first and think consumer debt spiral.
Right, so we have to separate two kinds of borrowing, consumption debt and production debt. Consumption debt is a borrow to buy something that doesn't pay me back. Nice phone, vacation, lifestyle spending. There are times when that's okay in moderation, but it's not a wealth engine. Production debt is a borrow to buy or build something that produces cash flow or increases earning power. Inventory that sells, equipment that enables a service, a small rental that can be rented out, education that has clear market demand, marketing that reliably turns into clients. The rich aren't pro-debt, they're pro-productive debt. And even then, only when the numbers and the risk make sense.
Give me a simple test. How does someone tell which is which?
2 questions. Question 1, if I stop working tomorrow, does this purchase keep producing value? If no, it's probably consumption. Question 2, can I explain the payback path in 1 minute? Not vibes, not hope. A path. I buy X, I use it to do Y, I sell to Z, I collect W, and I can service the debt. If you can't explain the payback path simply, you're not ready to borrow for it.
That already sounds different from borrow and pray.
Exactly. Most debt disasters come from 2 problems: unclear payback and no risk buffer.
Let's talk about risk buffer, because a lot of listeners have families. They're not 19 with nothing to lose.
Totally fair. If you have responsibilities, your risk policy has to be explicit. Here's a calm version. First, build a life raft fund. Not infinite, but enough to keep your household stable while you test new income streams. For many people, that's 3 to 6 months of essentials. If income is volatile, maybe more. Second, keep your first business bets small and reversible. You're not mortgaging the house to start a brand new restaurant. You're doing something like service freelancing, a niche content channel, a small digital product, a local agency. The goal is learning and cash flow. Third, if you borrow inside a sandbox, you cap downside. You never put your entire life into one role.
That's a very different tone than be fearless.
Fear is information. The goal is meant to delete fear. The goal is to design a plan where fear doesn't get to drive the car.
Now, there's another piece you mentioned. People are taught to treat money as scarce, and therefore hold it tightly.
Yes. If you believe money is rare, you behave like a guard. You hoard, you hide, you minimize. That can keep you safe, but it rarely makes you free. Freedom comes from a different question. How do I use money to buy time, skills, and assets? And the irony is the person who learns to deploy money well often ends up with more of it, even if they started with less.
This is where the spend effectively idea comes in.
Exactly. Most people define spending as losing money, but spending can be an investment into capability. Example, 2 people both spend €1,000. Person A spends it on a new phone and food delivery upgrades. Person B spends it on a basic camera, a mic, and a short course on editing, then starts a small content service for local businesses. Same spending, different trajectory.
So spending isn't the enemy. Waste is.
Right. Waste is spending with no intention and no return. Effective spending is spending that produces either cash flow or a durable upgrade in your earning power.
Let's deal with a common objection. That's easy to say, but banks aren't going to lend to me.
Then, borrowing isn't your first lever. Your first lever is credibility creation. Banks lend to patterns. If your financial life is chaotic, you look like risk. If your financial life is stable and documented, you look lendable. Practical steps. Clean up your banking history. Stabilize income. Document everything. Build a small track record of earning. Even a side hustle with consistent deposits changes the story your bank statement tells. But also, not all capital is a bank loan. It can be a small grant, a partner, pre-selling a service, a client paying a deposit, a platform advance, or simply reinvesting profits from the first small offer.
I want to slow down on our pre-selling. because that's a great alternative to debt.
Pre-selling is the calmest form of leverage because the customer finances the build. Example, you want to start a small consulting service. Instead of building a perfect website for 3 months, you offer a simple package to 5 potential clients. If 2 say yes and pay a deposit, you now have capital and validation. You didn't borrow, you proved demand. A lot of people skip this because they want certainty before they act. Pre-selling forces you to confront the market early.
Another objection: borrowing from friends and family feels safer than banks.
It can feel safer, but it's often more expensive emotionally. With banks, the relationship is commercial. Terms are explicit. With friends and family, terms are often vague, and the cost is tension. Even if nobody says anything, everyone feels something. If you must borrow from a person, do it like adults. Written terms, clear repayment, clear expectations, and only amounts that won't poison the relationship if something goes wrong.
Now, you also critique the save for 15 years and you're free narrative.
I critique it as a complete strategy, not as a component. Saving is essential. But if your plan is only, I will restrict life for 15 years and then I'll be safe, you might end up with safety, not freedom. Because freedom isn't just having a pile of money. Freedom is having options and resilience when life changes. Health, family needs, inflation, career disruptions, new responsibilities. A savings-only plan often assumes life stays stable and predictable. Real life is not stable and predictable.
So what replaces it?
A dual-engine approach. Engine 1, stability, budgeting, emergency fund, basic investing, protection against disaster. That's the floor. Engine 2, growth, skills, projects, business experiments, networking, and income scaling. That's the ceiling. Most people only build the floor and then wonder why the ceiling never rises.
Give me a practical framework a listener can use this week.
Here's a simple one. The 4 buckets and 1 rule. Bucket 1, essentials. Housing, food, bills, basic life. Bucket 2, safety. Emergency fund until you hit a target. Bucket 3, assets, index funds, retirement, long-term compounding. Bucket 4, capability, skills, tools, education, experiments that can increase income. The 1 rule, every month, money must flow into capability until you've built at least 1 additional income stream. It doesn't have to be huge, but it has to exist. Without capability, you're just optimizing a single paycheck.
That's very passive path. Build the engine first.
Exactly. Passive is built, not wished for.
Let's address the emotional piece. People feel shame around borrowing. They feel shame around wanting more.
Yes, many people confuse "I want more options" with "I'm ungrateful." Those are different. Wanting more options can be a form of responsibility. More options means you can handle emergencies, support family, walk away from bad work conditions, and say yes to meaningful opportunities. The shame often comes from inherited stories. Debt is dishonor, business is greedy, money changes people. Some of those stories exist because people have seen money abused. But the stories become harmful when they stop you from building stability and freedom ethically.
How does someone rewrite that story without becoming reckless?
Replace moral language with operational language. Instead of debt is bad, say debt increases obligations. Instead of saving is virtuous, say saving increases resilience. Instead of spending is wasteful, say spending can buy capability. When you remove moral drama, you can finally make clear decisions.
I want to revisit entrepreneurship because people will say, not everyone can start a business.
True, not everyone should start a traditional business, but almost everyone can create a small value stream. The modern world has a huge advantage. You can start tiny. You can start with a skill and a phone. You can start with content and consistency. You can start with a service and 1 client, and you don't have to quit your job immediately. That's another false binary. Either I'm an entrepreneur or I'm not. There's a middle path. Build on evenings and weekends until the income proves itself.
The transcript mentions the wind and timing, like catching a trend.
Yes, and we can say that in a grounded way. Some periods have stronger tailwinds in specific industries. Today, the obvious tailwinds include online distribution, software tools, and AI-assisted workflows. Tailwind doesn't guarantee success, but it reduces the cost of experimentation. For example, AI can help a solo creator write, edit, design, and distribute faster. That means the barrier to entry for a small media business is lower than it used to be. But the point isn't AI will make you rich. The point is, the cost of building and shipping has dropped. That changes what's possible for ordinary people.
So if someone is listening and thinking, okay, but what do I actually do? Give a few calm starting paths.
3 paths that don't require big upfront capital. Path 1. Skill to service. Pick a marketable skill: video editing, short-form captions, simple web pages, bookkeeping, copywriting, automation, and sell it to a narrow niche. One niche, one offer, one promise. Path 2. Content to cash flow. Pick a topic you can sustain for a year, publish consistently, then add monetization, layers, affiliate sponsorship, digital products, service, memberships. This is slower, but can become durable. Path 3. Arbitrage and bundling. Find something people want, but hate: organizing, travel planning, vendor selection, home services, small business systems, and package it as a service. You're not inventing, you're simplifying.
Where does borrowing come in, if at all, for these paths?
Later, and only when it amplifies a proven engine. Borrowing is best used to scale something that already works. If you already have clients and a reliable process, borrowing to hire help or buy better tools might increase output. Borrowing to find out if this works is higher risk. Sometimes it's necessary, but it should be the exception, not the default.
That's a key nuance. Borrow to scale proof, not to buy hope.
Exactly.
Now, let's talk about saving last. People will misunderstand you and think you're saying don't save.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you only save and never build earning power, you can get trapped in a tiny life. The deeper point is, saving is a result of a strong engine, not the engine itself. If your income is low and fixed, saving becomes painful. If your income grows, saving becomes natural. The order that prioritizes income growth and capability can eventually make saving effortless.
Can we summarize the 2 sequences in 1 minute?
Sure. Scarcity sequence: protect first, then earn, then save what's left. Spend last. It maximizes safety and minimizes regret, but often caps growth. Leverage sequence: acquire resources for a clear purpose, deploy them into an asset or capability. Earn through that, then allocate to safety and savings. It can scale but requires discipline and risk management. The best adult version blends both. You keep a safety floor while you build a leverage engine.
I want to do a reality check for listeners who feel behind. They might hear this and think, I've already spent years doing it the safe way.
Then you haven't failed. You've built a base. The safe way often creates stability. Good habits, budgeting skill, reliability, patience. Those are powerful. The next step is not to abandon them. The next step is to add a second layer: capability and cash flow experiments. Think of it like fitness. If you only walk, you'll be healthier than someone who does nothing. But if you want performance, you eventually add strength training. Not because walking was wrong, but because you need a different stimulus.
Nice analogy. Let's do some host pushback. You've said environment shapes mindset, but people can't always leave their environment.
True, but you can add layers. If your family is risk-averse, don't argue. Don't convert them. Just quietly build proofs. Share less. Do more. Make small experiments that don't threaten household stability. Over time, results become a new kind of language. And even if your environment never changes, you'll have created a parallel environment through your peers and projects.
Another pushback. Isn't this just telling people to hustle harder?
It shouldn't be. This is about direction, not suffering. Hustle for its own sake is exhausting. The goal is to channel effort into assets and skills that compound. You can work very hard at a job that doesn't compound for you, or you can work moderately on something that compounds. The second approach is usually healthier long-term.
Okay, let's end with practical takeaways. If someone listens to this episode and wants to act today, what are the top steps?
5 steps. Step 1, write your current sequence. How do you actually handle money each month? Not what you intend, what you do. Step 2, build the floor. Essentials covered, emergency buffer started, high-interest consumer debt addressed. You need stability. Step 3. Pick one capability bet, something small that can increase income within 60-90 days. A skill, a service, a simple offer. Step 4. Design a tiny sandbox. Decide the maximum money and time you're willing to lose on this experiment. That's your risk boundary. Step 5. Ship weekly. Not perfect. Real. Weekly output creates feedback. Feedback creates improvement. Improvement creates income.
I'll add one more. Watch your language. If everything is risky, you'll never move.
Exactly. Replace risky with what's the downside. And can I survive it? That question turns fear into planning.
Let me summarize for the listener. Most people were taught a scarcity workflow. Avoid borrowing, earn, save, and spend last. It's stable, but it can trap you inside a fixed paycheck. There's another workflow the world of business uses. Use capital with intention, deploy it into capability or assets, earn through that engine, then allocate to safety and savings. The mature version isn't reckless borrowing. It's a blend. Keep a safety floor, then build a cash flow engine, so saving becomes easier because income grows. That's the passive path version. Fewer fantasies, more engines. Any final thought before we close?
Just this. Don't worship any one rule about money. Treat money like a tool. Learn the safe uses and the powerful uses. Then choose based on your responsibilities and your goals. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us on the passive path. If this helped you, keep it simple. Build the floor, then build the engine.